Back then, it was mostly VGX 410 Mipristone was really, there were more. I mean, even when I came in, I think there were, was there 4 or 5 different concepts? I think you even had INDs. I want to say on at least 3, if it wasn't 4 at the time. And you were 2 guys in this office right off the campus of University of Pennsylvania. You were using lab space there. Again, these were things that, you know, when we went to the TR100, we didn't want to be involved in biotech. When we left, we were involved in biotech. We did it because of one person, you. The more we looked at you, the more impressive you became. And, you know, people right now look at Inovio as a small biotech. It's not a startup anymore. Would you call it mid-stage?
I would say mid-stage, product stage.
And one of the things I always hear and other people comment on is how many products you have in pipeline. Pretty much that's normal for you. I mean, from 2-man office, you know, you always have a lot going on. You've always been effective in managing that. And again, when we were involved early, from the point we put money in, we used to constantly talk about how much you were able to get from so little money. I mean, yeah, it was a lot of money to us back then too, but in the big scheme of things, when you're putting drugs to market, $1 million is nothing.
Right. Well,
And
Tom,
tell us about Mipristone.
Yeah, Tom, mifepristone was a drug that was previously approved for a different indication. We found that David Weiner, our co-founder, found in his lab and published extensively in medical scientific journals that drug had a added benefit in cell culture in animals in preventing HIV infection by blocking one of the pathways where we call that a pre-integration translocation factor, and it worked really well. We're able to make the drugs under GMP, get a huge funding from the NIH to actually test them through their AIDS clinical trials group. Went through a large phase 2 trial because there was such a high hopes and promise from the earlier studies. And we failed to see the final efficacy, but that was a great experience in learning how to develop drugs against such a tough target like the HIV and hepatitis C and others.
And of course, after that we had Hep C, which we had high hopes for.
Yeah, so Hep C was another target that we wanted to develop the antiviral drugs against. We also failed in that regard. Toughened us up in terms of vetting our technology and making sure our process. You know, those trials were well run. You know, there's, you know, I would say overall, drug development is a tough business. You know, it's not making new PDAs or iPhones and launching it in 6 months and so on. It takes many years, and most drugs fail in testing. So
they believe it's, and you can correct me, is it 90% roughly?
Probably 99%, I believe so. But what I did learn is you have to run your trials well. You have to, it's 3 Ps, the way I look at it is people, patents, and products. So people first though. I built the company around the people that I was able to track. David Weiner at UPenn, the father of DNA vaccines and a pioneer in HIV vaccines research. You know, some of my colleagues, former classmates at Merck and MIT and UPenn were all senior managers in our company and remains to be. And I didn't hire them and bring them on to Inovio because they're my friends. I hired them because they're the best in their field, and it's just a bonus that I can trust them even further because of our other, you know, additional relationship with each of these people.
Well, it's a real advantage of going to the best schools, frankly. I mean, they're are very few stupid people at MIT. There really aren't many, maybe not any. Wharton School, you know, other famous graduates. Probably the most famous. Is most famous? Would Trump be the most famous? Wharton
Probably
School of
infamous
Business.
or
Yeah.
famous.
Love or hate Trump.
Yeah.
He's a really bright person. Certainly a great entrepreneur and innovator.
Right. So, and really the extra factor there is the startups and early stage companies. I use the analogy of being in the foxholes. You're battling against the world, you're battling against the tough challenges of developing new medicines, and you know, you're in a foxhole and you want to make sure you can count on the person next to you. And if you have additional layers of trust and understanding beyond, you know, the technical expertise and sort of the what you see in the CV, I think that's certainly very good. In fact, to this day, I have hired all of my senior executive team personally through my networks of different pharmaceutical companies, especially my old employer Merck and others, or my networks through these schools that you have mentioned. I haven't had to rely on a search firm to hire key executives for Inovio.
Well, that's very good news. So moving on, we had a whole series. You had a whole series. I say we. We were investing back then. We were putting more money in. You know, more failures. You know, it only makes good financial sense to invest in more failure. Again, from our perspective, we were smart enough to understand that the chance of success was low on any given product. We had high hopes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would sit with David on occasion, you know, and David's never positive on anything that I can tell. You're borderline. The only real positive person in the room is me. Oh, it's going to go great. And of course, I'm the least qualified. But in my defense, I was never whining too hard when it went wrong. I was always disappointed and ready for the next thing. Again, from our perspective, we knew no matter what happened, we were invested with the right team of people. We knew that. There was no doubt. And one of the, back then, 03, especially in 03, I know that we were starting to talk about going public with VGX. Mm-hmm. My partner and I did everything. We actually did physically twist Joseph's arms one day in his office. So let's talk about that period. Things went wrong. We did briefly, I think at one point in 03, you called me up and said, yeah, we're going to go public. And then what happened next?
Well, you know, the IPO market's very fickle. The windows open and close, and really the window has been pretty poor throughout since 2001. Since the September 11th, you know, there hasn't been fantastic IPO market for biotechs. So, you know, and Sarbanes-Oxley's and other additional regulations.
We've had many conversations about Sarbanes-Oxley. Right. It's been a real albatross for anybody going public, and I remember you showing me paperwork that you were having to do, compliance and.
Right. So only good benefit of being a public company is a lower cost of capital, and giving the investors an access to liquidity. So giving them an exit out, you know, it's their freedom. So that's why we looked at the public market, not as you know, as a fad or as a sexy thing to do, but really as ways to grow the company. We chose at that point not to do that because that would have been premature, and as we know now, because of the drug stumbles that we had with mifepristone and so on, it would have been much more difficult to really manage the correction of the direction of the company. And as you and I talked about already, it's very, it's not very often that a initial startup with a vision and a plan could see a failure and then be able to steer the whole organization away into something even better. And that's the opportunity that we faced in 2005 and 2006 time period where, I mean, let's face it, I published almost 100 papers, scientific papers on DNA vaccines. That was my first love, and obviously David was one of the few who started the field. So it made sense for us to be in it. We just didn't have the business opportunity in 2000, 2001 to do that. As they said, when one door closes, another door could open. So initial failures of our first two phase 2 studies allowed us to regroup, and we fortunately had the resources, money, the people, and other technology resources to go with the next generation, second generation DNA vaccines with better delivery. And then we acquired a company that had a right delivery system in Avasys, which was a private Texas-based company. That then came along was a manufacturing facility for plasmids that we were able to utilize.
And Avasys was an animal health company, correct?
And they had their main business was using the DNA technology for veterinary medicine. In fact, because of that acquisition and because of the execution of the licensure of the first DNA vaccines product for Inovio, and only fourth in the world by anyone for animal health, is a product called the Lifetide. It's a injection that reduces infant mortality in piglets, and it's been approved for marketing in Australia and then subsequently in New Zealand. We more recently have made a optimized version of that product, and we have completed testing in the US, and our hope is to launch those new formulated product into those countries, as well as in the US and other larger veterinary markets as well.
Something that doesn't seem to be commonly known. Inovio has an animal health division. For many years it really didn't do a whole lot. After, I remember when you called me when you were purchasing Avasys, and my partner and I went out to Texas and we saw the facility, and we wrote a large check, $1 million investment, and used that money to take Lifetide. At the time the target was pigs, using it for large producers, large farm producers. And the concept was also, again, smart. I didn't agree with you. I remember I wanted to do companion animals still. But the concept was a very tiny company trying to market a product. If you could send one guy to 10 or 12 farms and sell millions of doses, that's much more cost efficient than trying to send somebody around to talk to vets, individual vets, and eventually getting out to individual customers that own animals and convince them to use the product. Again, you were trying to get a lot out of a little. I also remember you were having trouble getting it approved in the United States.
So, I mean, as a small company, you have to pick your battles, and we chose Australia. Folks before me had those strategies, which I still support. So Australia was great because we had a partner that paid for a lot of the pigs that went into the trials. Australia is a green market. Livestock is very important for their industry. There are many, we're able to clear up the GMO concerns. With flying colors, there's no GMO concern as far as our product is concerned. And it was a great test market for our product, and certainly to be one of the first 4 veterinary products using DNA plasmids is a great honor, and we look forward to using that as a springboard to expand the optimized product into other countries, including the US.